and we just didn't have seats to put them. so
Yeah.
it went really, really well. It was well received. So we're happy
Awesome
about
stuff. Awesome stuff. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. We also, ladies and gentlemen, have another director on our show today. A friend of mine that I have had a chance to appear in a film that he did in 2016 called Love Different. He also did Crisis Call. He's CEO and founder of Sunset Friday Entertainment. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my good friend, Anthony Hackett. Anthony, what's going on, brother?
Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. It's great to have you on board today. And you also have a film that's coming out here pretty soon. Correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony. I believe it's High School Bully.
I will correct you since you're wrong. But you're only wrong because we just changed the title, man, yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we now have a new title. The film is called Hope Lives, formerly known as High School Bully. And yes, that is a film coming up. Release date still to be determined, but that is our latest project. And shout out to Don't Say My Name, my man Marty. Congrats on the film. Congrats on everything that's going on with the film. It's a very powerful topic that you guys are addressing, and I'm glad you're addressing it. So congrats on that.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
sir, on your film as well.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Good to have you guys on the show. And also now we're going to bring in another director who is the creator and writer of the very popular crime series, faith-based crime series.
Now we're going to bring in another
Vindication, now in its second season and can be seen on PureFlix, Redeem TV, and Amazon Prime. Please welcome my good buddy, Jarod O'Flaherty. What's up, Jarod?
Hey, Maurice. Good to be back for, I think, the third time now, maybe?
This is the third edition of the lack of diversity in faith-based films, and we're giving it a different look this time. And you know, I mean, you just bring such a beautiful shade to the cast, Jarod. I love it. So, Jarod, yes, this is the third edition of the lack of diversity in faith-based film. Glad to have you guys on the show, and a little bit. How are things going with Vindication right now?
You know, we each week a new episode's coming out on PureFlix, so we get to hear a lot of live feedback from audiences, and it seems like momentum continues to build. So that's exciting. What you would want, from a series. When we do a lot of cliffhangers and people get online and they're mad, they're like, "Oh, why did you do that to me? Why'd you stop?" And I'm like, "Well, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Do we want our audience mad at us?"
Right.
For the cliffhangers, but everybody tells me it's like, no, they want more. That's a good thing. You want that. So you want the audience mad if it's in that framework.
Dude, I'm gonna tell you right now, I am absolutely loving Vindication right now, and it's this. I cannot wait for the final two episodes. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not seen this faith-based crime series, you can see it on PureFlix, Redeem TV, as I said, or Amazon Prime. You got to see it. Episode 9 drops next Wednesday at 12 midnight or 12 a.m., so you don't want to miss that. So, and now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to. I'm sorry, we're going to add something, Jarod.
No, I was not. I was laughing at one of the comments that came in.
Okay, so we're going to bring in an actor now. We've had a couple of directors. We're going to bring in an actor who's best known for his work in City Blues in 2021, Death and Compromise in 2019, and The Deer also in 2019. Please welcome the very talented Michael J. Rodriguez. What's up, Mike?
Hey, how's it going, Maurice? Thanks for having me, buddy.
Man, it's great to have you on the show, man. And we were supposed to have Jenn Gotzon on the show. Jenn had to make a late cancellation, so we just want to keep her lifted up. And also Evette Morales, who was not able to join us. She may be joining us a little bit later, but we're going to go with you guys as we dive into this. This is the third edition of the lack of diversity in faith-based films. I did my first show with Anthony and Cameron Arnett, Skeeta Jenkins, Karen Bankhead, and Michael Patterson. Then a second show with actresses Karen Abercrombie, Sharon Lanier, and Karen Bankhead again, and then I had to have my main man Anthony back on. So this time we kind of want to get a different spin and get some different voices up here from different backgrounds and just get a different perspective as we broaden this topic of the lack of diversity in faith-based films. And I started this with Skeeta Jenkins. And I didn't even intend to do this, guys. Honestly, we were just kicking it after a show I did with him. And I asked him, I said, what do you think needs to change? What is the most important change that needs to take place in faith-based filmmaking? And he said, it needs to be more diverse. There needs to be more people of color in faith-based film. And I went, whoa, you know what? That's really a great point. It's very relevant, and I decided to do a show. And now we're back for the third edition, and we've had some really interesting insights on this topic. And I sent you guys some of the questions, but I want to start out with Anthony Hackett because he did this film in 2016 called Love Different that I had a chance to be a part of, which I'm thankful to him for. But it dealt with races, and he did it in a comical way. And it wasn't the point of the film. It was about God, but it was a lot of joking, lighthearted joking about the differences between black and white. But Anthony, I'm going to throw it over to you. What was your mindset in that part of Love Different?
Well, first, let me just shout out Jenn Gotzon, who was the co-star in that film, Love Different, who couldn't make it here today. So shout out to Jenn. That's my girl, man. It's crazy. It's like she's my first white female friend. I gotta be honest. I ain't got too many white female friends. My wife be like, who's your friend? I'm like, yo, she's just a friend, man. She's just a friend. But Jenn, that's my girl, man. I love Jenn and Jim, her husband, great people. And she was fantastic. And actually also shout to Evette too, because Evette Morales, who also was supposed to join us today, she also participated in the film. She was one of our background actors in that film too. So shout out to her for her participation. But the film itself, man, it was just for me, it was just listening to God, just being able to kind of use my talent and gift and comedy and everything else that comes with that to address a topic that specifically in the faith-based world isn't really addressed. So the film was able to kind of use race and the differences. But the whole point of the film was for people to understand that, it doesn't really matter who you are, what background you come from. The fact is that God loves everyone. The only thing is that he loves everyone different. He does love everyone equally, but he loves everyone differently because certain people need different type of love. Certain people need more discipline in their love. Certain people need more compassion in their love. I mean, various ways. I mean, all of us here, we each love different people in our lives differently. So because of that, that film was just great, made to kind of bring out that message and use race as an opportunity to shed light on God's love for us and how he loves each of us differently.
Absolutely. And I want to swing this over to Mike Rodriguez. We've kind of given our take from an African American perspective. As a Latino actor, Mike, what has life been like for you as an actor in the faith-based industry?
What I've found is it's been a little bit difficult to break into the faith-based industry. I think mostly because trying to make the right connections. It's just a matter of people not knowing maybe you're there. It's not so much as I don't like Mike or anything like that. I think it's really more so having to do with finding out which circles to join, which where the auditions are being posted at, and things of that nature. So, but I've been able to throw my name in the hat a few times through Actors Access on a few jobs out there. But yeah, I that's definitely one of my bucket list items is to break into a solid Christian-based film or series because of course it's aligned with my own faith and definitely something that I want to portray myself out there as. And right now, I get a lot of gigs. I get gigs as a cartel boss. Tough cop kind of thing that so I've kind of gone a little bit with some of that based on my look. My wife tells me if I'm not smiling, it looks like I'm angry at everybody. So I'm trying to smile all the time.
Right.
I'm really not an angry guy. It's just the look I portray, I guess. So
Well, I'm very relieved to know that, Mike, because you look pretty tough. I'm like, oh man, I just hope it doesn't hurt me. Mike, let me let me ask you this: have you ever had a personal experience, Mike, where you felt like you were being slighted or overlooked as a person of color when auditioning for a film?
honestly, no, I've not experienced that. If it happened, it would have been unbeknownst to me, and then not me aware of the situation. I'm one of those. I hold myself accountable. I do the acting training, the reading, the studying, the working out, the constantly trying to put my best foot forward, make good relationships, remain a positive mindset, and to me, and of course, praying and asking God for discernment and guidance and wisdom. And I believe those opportunities will present themselves when it's meant to be, because I really don't think you can prevent me from getting on a project that God wants me on.
Amen. I love that attitude. And that's the attitude to take. I mean, at the end of the day, no one can keep you down when you have Christ in front of you. Now, I want to throw my next question to Marty, and anyone can answer this, but I'm going to direct this to you, Marty, and it relates to typecasting. And do you think that typecasting, because a lot of African American roles, you'll see them as drug dealer, you'll see them as the character that is involved in some shady business or what have you. A lot of times that you'll see that in Hollywood, and for sure, and in the faith-based world. But do you think that's a subject, Marty, that needs to be addressed when assigning roles in the world of movie making?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've heard it from a lot of different folks where, for example, they just want me to play a pastor, and that's it. And they want
Yeah.
me to just play a mom, and that's all the roles that I keep getting, just mom roles or pastor roles. Yeah, I think so. But at the end of the day, too, there are auditions. If you are auditioning for these roles, then there's a chance that you may get them. Uh,
Yeah.
so, so yeah, I think it does need to be addressed. For me personally, I do not care. If you're an actor, you're an actor. You should be able to do different types of roles. And I think you should push yourself. If you normally do light roles, try to do darker roles, and vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yeah.
Uh, but someone has to give you that chance to do
Yes,
that.
absolutely. Absolutely. Somebody's got to give you a shot. And, I want to throw this over to you, Jarod. I give you 100% props, Jarod, as a white director and writer that's willing to dive into this subject and address it. You and I had a chance to sit down and have lunch over the summer and kind of talk about the lack of diversity in faith-based films. And you were telling me that, it's not an intentional thing, on your end, and it's probably not intentional by a lot of writers, white writers and directors, and particularly in the faith-based film. It's just about the space you live in. So you write about the space that you live in. Care to expound on that a little bit, Jarod?
Yeah, when we met this summer and had a chance, I think I'm the one that brought it up because I'd watched these shows.
Yeah.
And I shared with you an experience I'd had. I went on an interview one day, and the host and the audience was predominantly African American, and I'm on there. And, hey, that's great. I love a broader audience. And the host said, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and run the trailer for Vindication. And I'm like, all right, this is great, and they pop the trailer up and it starts running, and it gets 30 seconds in, 45, a minute, and I'm going, I've seen a whole lot of white faces in here. I have not seen anyone with a darker shade in this trailer yet, and I'm going, okay, all right, because I'd never paid attention to it before. I hadn't noticed it. I know we had diversity in our cast in season 1, but the trailer, which I cut together, I just didn't, go in and say, hey, let's make sure I get certain people in there and that sort of thing. So I'm watching this, and we come back, from the trailer, and the host, very cordial and laughing and smiling. He said, hey man, if you do another season, can we at least have a black guy walk by in the background or something, And it was a moment that brought it to my attention. Whereas when I'm in the editing bay and cutting it, I'm thinking about, stories and the big pow moments or whatnot. But then when here I'm in front of an audience, And I'm thinking, oh man, that's something that I didn't really pay attention to, and now I'm seeing it because of the environment I'm in. So that's kind of where I brought it up. It definitely wasn't something intentional, but I could certainly see someone watching it and saying, yeah, that was pretty much the whitest thing I've ever seen. I think we even got a YouTube comment one time on our trailer saying that is the whitest show I've ever seen. And I'm like, oh, no, but no, hold on, go watch the show. But anyway, yeah, so I would say all that to say, for me, I'm so focused on story and all this kind of thing that something like that may be overlooked. And for other
Yeah.
people, that's important.
It's a great point that you make. I mean, I've sat down, and I'd love for any of you guys to address this, but I've seen a lot of faith-based films, and a lot of them I've felt, correct me if I'm wrong, but most of them, like if I go to PureFlix, most of those films are predominantly white films, and very few people of color are involved in those films. And I think that a lot of it has to do with what you just said, Jarod, and what you alluded to over the summer is that, you just write about the space that you live in. These are the people I know. These are the people that go to my church. These are the people that live in my neighborhood. And so I'm going to take this subject matter and I'm going to put these people in the film, without even thinking, well, I need to be more inclusive. I need to get, some people of color here, some black folks in here, or get some Latinos in, whatever. You're not thinking that at all. So it's not like you're intentionally excluding people of color. It just happens to be the space that you live in. Anthony, I'm going to ask you this. I'll throw this question to you. Why do you think that seems to be a limited number of opportunities for people of color to take on a leading role?
I mean, that's easy because there's limited opportunities for people of color to take on leading roles. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, if there's, you can go and look at casting calls left and right, and the opportunities are limited for Hispanic, African American, Asian, Indian. It is what it is. Now, why is that? Well, that's because the large majority of, and I'm gonna get, all right, it's time to get a little real. So a large
there it is.
majority of good faith-based films are white produced, white written, white funded. And the reason why I say good is because, and I'm being unfortunate here. Unfortunately, a lot of non-white faith-based films typically suck a lot. And the reason for that is because because of the lack of funding, the lack of support,
right,
the lack of resources that we have. It's just this weird cycle where, there is a blatant disparity between the resources and funding that, on average, African Americans and Hispanic minorities have versus white people have, right?
Right.
And because of that, you see the quality of difference. And a lot of people who are actors, like Michael, even myself as an actor, we want to work on some quality projects. We start somewhere, but then we want to continue to elevate our game to higher quality projects. And higher quality projects typically are white funded, white produced. Now, with that being said, those films that are typically white produced and white funded, those are the films that are typically written without intentionality to include a minority leading role.
Okay.
That simple.
Okay.
There's not an intentionality. There may not be an intentionality to dismiss them per se, but there's also not an intentionality to include them. So because they're not intentional and saying, you know what, I see this leading role being a minority. Let's cast this as a minority. That is intentional. And then therefore you go out and you cast that role with a minority face in mind. But that's not typically how it is, just because people typically write what they know. And that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with these situations, but there's nothing wrong with them at its core. But there is something that we can do to do better within our community of faith-based if we want to increase the minority presence in films. We have to be intentional about including minorities. And from the hierarchy of our genre of faith-based films,
Yeah.
start, and really, to be honest with you, just films, period, just even secularly, the hierarchy is white funded, white produced. So it has to start there because we're doing it. Like I'm doing it. I'm black. I'm directing stuff. I'm producing stuff. I'm hiring black people. But
Yeah.
that's me. Marty's doing the same thing. You know, we doing it. We diversifying. But we here. Our funding is here. Our resources is here. Our opportunities are here. And
Yeah.
this and Jarod, I'm not sure. Jarod might be right along with us. He might not. He probably ain't the richest dude in the bunch either. You know what I'm saying? He's probably like,
Yeah, yeah.
talking about, I ain't got no daggone money. I ain't no billionaire just because I'm white. You know what I'm saying? And that's cool. I ain't saying that you are. But what I am saying is, on average, when we're just looking at the genre and we're looking at the grandeur of our business, the white people are at top and they have the resources of funding that we don't. And so we have to see them be intentional in writing roles and securing opportunities for minorities because we're doing it, but we're not getting the same play.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point. Great point.
Can I add to what he's saying as
Yeah.
well? I think some of it, not all of it, is very intentional in not hiring a lead black actor.
Okay.
And the reason why, or actress, the reason why I say that is because from the marketing standpoint, right? Because they're thinking, who's going to pay for my movie, to watch my movie, and to buy my movie, to come to the movie theater, right? Who is that person that's going to be willing to shell out the money? So they're thinking, oh, it's the white folks that we don't have. I'm being real. They sometimes think, hey, we don't have a lot of support from the black community. And part of it is because there isn't a black lead.
That's why you see how circle. It's crazy. It's like what came first, the egg or the
Exactly.
Situation.
Yeah.
And statistically speaking, Maurice, I spoke recently with a individual that is in distribution for faith-based films, and he was informing me that statistically the largest audience for faith-based films are white middle-aged women. That's the largest audience. And so a lot of times that's why you see there's a lot of films with a lot of white women leads, and that's fine. But that's just the audience. That's the typical audience. So our audience has to grow, but how do we grow if we're not feeding them people that look like them? It's this weird circle.
You know, and I wish Jenn were here, because I wanted her to kind of give us her impression of, because she was essentially Love Different is a black film, and she was, you know, you've got a blind in the middle of a black film, and she did a great job. She was very funny, but I just kind of wanted to get her take. But I'll switch back over to you, Jarod, regarding Vindication. And talking about the intentionality of just being more diverse in assigning, you know, characters in your project. Did you go into season 2 with that mentality?
Yeah. Before I dig into that, I want to just say one little comment. You know, it's so neat that we can get on here. I'm hearing Marty and Mike and Anthony and everything they're saying, and I'm just nodding because I'm like, I agree with everything you're saying. And isn't that great? Because when we look in other forms of media, it seems like if we got this group of people together, none of us would agree on anything. Yet I'm hearing everything you're saying, and I'm like, I agree completely. Everything you're saying, yes, we're on the same page. So
all the glory to Christ,
important
man.
for people to see how much we agree on things of that nature. So, so I will say going into season 2, I didn't, make a list and say I want more diversity in the cast at the top. I want to tell better stories, and I think telling better stories is going to have more diversity. There's one scene in season 2; it's one of my favorites, and it's not because of anything that's happening on the screen. It's because our wardrobe department made sure that each character in this scene had a distinctly different wardrobe color. There's a purple, there's a red, there's a white, there's all these different, and it's just a beautiful scene because there's diversity in the wardrobe of those characters. And I think the same thing happens with your cast. If it's all the same people all telling the same stuff, you lose something. If that scene that I love so much, she had put each person in a white shirt, it would be bland. It wouldn't have that
Right.
that contrast that jumps out. So I think the same thing can happen in the cast. But to me, it's, hey, let's tell better stories, and I think telling better stories are going to reach into more diverse areas with the characters.
So was that your mindset going into season 2 of Vindication, to try to be more diverse?
Again, it was tell better stories. That
Just
was
tell-
that was my mindset. Tell better stories in season 2, and
Yeah.
I think a natural reaction to that is you do end up with a more diverse cast.
Now, Mike, let me throw this over, because we have a viewer, Dave Ebert, says it's a vicious cycle. The audience isn't there because it hasn't been offered. It isn't offered because there's not an audience. What do you think of that, Mike?
I could see it talk to both sides of that, but I think if we take the approach, I like where Jared's going with his approach. If you just base it on talent and the best person for the job, I think that also will open it up to more diverse films and projects. I think, if you close that door, and you could have opened it, to someone who, it doesn't matter what color they are, and you just close it and leave it to one color, white, or whatever that you do, you might miss out on some great talent and opportunities in those roles. And I can understand from the business perspective of, hey, we need someone who's going to sell tickets. You can also sell tickets by the quality of the project, right? Who makes quality projects? The right producers, the right directors, the right writers, and you market
Right.
from that standpoint. So, oh my gosh, this is one of their films. Goodness, yeah, I definitely want to see this. And you can approach it from that perspective to sell tickets. Then you could have more flexibility with putting the right talent in the role. I mean, I'm not saying give me the role because I'm Hispanic. Let me go and compete for that role. And if I lose because I was lost, someone just did a better job or was a better fit, I can sleep at night with that.
Yeah. Marty, I want to throw this one at you. On a previous show, I had Sharon Lanier make an interesting statement, which I thought was worth kind of chewing on a little bit. But she said that she thinks Hollywood is doing a better job of being diverse than the faith-based industry. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's a big thing for Hollywood, the diversity thing. That's been a thing that they've been knocking, and you do see more people of color. If you look at television shows and movies, you do see a lot more people of color than you normally did 5, 10 years ago. That is for sure. And I
Yeah.
think we need more in our faith-based community for sure. It is better. I will say it is better, but it's slow.
Yeah.
I would say, so Hollywood, though, the difference between Hollywood getting a larger minority involvement in films and stuff versus the faith-based industry
Yeah.
is because Hollywood is seeing black dollars go into films. Black people were showing up to movies. They're buying stuff in secular films. They
Yeah.
are paying money to go see this and that and this. So they're like, oh wait, we getting these bills. We need to feed. We need to make sure we're more diversified because we're gonna lose this whole section of our audience. If we're not feeding, if we're not being inclusive. In faith-based films, we're not seeing that same action. In the minority community, we're not
No,
seeing
we're not.
minorities come out in drones to see these faith-based films. I'm sure the largest number of black people that came out to a Christian movie was probably War Room, and that's it. But War Room probably got the largest black audience, and then after that, nothing. I don't know what. What? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I'm just talking about because we seen, and why? Because they seen a leading main cast in that film. So it kind of goes back to the goose egg thing, but at the same time, in the faith-based world, black equipment. Sorry, you guys, kind of hood over here. The thing is, I'm encouraging. I want to say this as a plea to any of minorities who are out here. Even if you're watching this and you're a minority, you clearly are interested and intrigued enough to be part of this conversation about diversity. And I encourage you to actually do more supporting of films that include minority cast, and reach out to directors to be able to include them, because if we don't see your money coming in, or if we don't see your likes on videos, or if we don't see you posting and sharing, if we don't see these things happening, then unfortunately you're going to see less of yourself on screen. So I really want to encourage that the people are watching, so that we as a people can be able to actually feed and support. I need your dang support. Marty needs your support. Michael needs your support. Maurice needs your support. Jarod, he got white people, but he needs your support too. We all need your support. Because Jarod got me in that blood, he got Cameron in that joint. It was my people. So I encourage you to go out and support these faith-based films from the minority people.
Amen, amen, Anthony. Well said, well said. Dave Ebert asked the question, and this is open for any one of you guys to dive in. He says, asking from a sincere heart, is there a cultural issue where faith-based projects are pigeonholed in certain sectors? And he also says, I've sought minority representation in his comedy with his comedy team, and it's been the hardest thing he's ever done. Anybody care to tackle that one?
Unless you guys already understand that, I don't really get it. If Dave, you could, unless someone can answer that, but Dave, if you could elaborate, or Maurice, maybe you can break it down, but I don't understand his question of, is there a cultural issue where faith-based project is pigeonholed in a certain sector? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what he means by that. I'm not. Yeah, Dave, if you could expound a little bit on that question, I'm not 100% sure where you're going there. But Jarod, do you have a feel for what he's trying to say?
I think maybe he's echoing what Anthony has hit on a lot, is that in different cultures, maybe the faith-based projects just aren't as viewed as positively or willing to give them a chance. That's where I thought he was going with it.
Yeah, I'm a little bit. The best I could ascertain from that is just the faith-based world being kind of pigeonholed in a certain area where, again, they're predominantly white projects, and you just kind of go, okay, this is the only audience. Because, Anthony, you alluded a moment ago to the fact that, there are not a lot of black folks that are going to faith-based films. They're just not. I mean, they'll go to Hollywood film. A lot of black Christians will go to a Hollywood film way before they'll go to a Christian film, which I find that a little odd. But I do believe that's probably the case, which might lend itself to some pigeonhole explanation. But I think it's bad that's the case. I tell people all the time about vindication. I tell a lot of my black friends about vindication. They're like, "What's vindication?" Oh, well, it's on Pure Flix. What's Pure Flix? What's a Pure Flix? So I don't know. I don't know why that is, but there's a distinct difference. I mean, look, man, I'm a man of God. I got no problem watching Pure Flix. I got no problem. I don't care that look, our buddy Jenn Gotzon jumped in. Hey, Jenn, how are you?
Well, hi guys. I don't mean to steamroll everything, but we just got out of the emergency room with our little 1-year-old.
Everything's okay?
God answered prayers and he's well. So I thought I'd jump on real quick as we're.
Oh man, I am so glad that you jumped in, because right now, Jenn, we're kind of chewing on the fact that the faith-based world seems to be, I guess I go with what my man Dave Ebert said, pigeonholed. It's like a lot of African-American audiences will go to a Hollywood film before they'll go to a Christian film. And we're just really trying to break down, okay, well, what is the source of that? Now, Dave Ebert, who asked the question, says, I did hit it right. That's exactly what he meant. The faith-based productions are not respected in minority culture as it is in white culture. That's kind of what he's asking. So you kind of know where he's going now, Anthony?
I mean, so I would, first of all, before I even address anything, if Jenn or anybody wanted to say something, please feel free. If not, I'll jump in on that.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Let me, because I don't think I'm going to have very much time. I just wanted to pop in and honor you and everyone for what you're doing in this conversation. It's so important. It's so important. So,
Amen.
so to answer Dave's question, I actually think it's a mark of excellence. When we go to a Hollywood movie, we expect phenomenal entertainment. We expect to be blown away by the story. We want to escape.
Yeah.
We want to have a good time. We want to spend our money to go to the theater to buy popcorn. We want to kick our feet up at home and get whisked away. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, there is just this stigma in your mind that if you say faith-based, it's a element of poor quality, poor sound, poor acting, poor story. So the brain creates a coloring over what they're going to watch before they even see it. Then you have your audience who absolutely loves and are fans of faith-based movies, and those are your subscribers to your faith-based streamers.
Yeah.
And so they're the consumers of the content. But if we're
Yeah.
faith-based
Yeah.
filmmakers trying to reach the majority, we have to be the salt and the light of the mark of excellence. Just like the Ark of the Covenant, when we look back in the Old Testament, it was excellent. If we're not, and if we market it faith-based, I don't think we really truly are able to get the crossover market, because people, that stigma, it's going to take a while to change.
Jen, I want to ask you something before you dip out. I'm so glad that you popped in, because there was a question or two that I did want to ask you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking with Jenn Gotzon, who was in Love Different in 2016, with directed by Anthony Hackett. And I had the opportunity to be in that film with her. Michael Patterson was in that as well. And Jenn was also in the Oscar-nominated Frost Nixon film in 2009. She's done a bunch of quality work in the film industry. But what I wanted to ask you, Jenn, in relation to the topic, you were in a predominantly black film in 2016, Love Different. Did you think that it was important for you, Jenn, as a Caucasian actress, to participate in a film like Love Different, which was so diverse and different?
Yeah. It's my husband just jumped in and his mama's on the speakerphone, guys. This is called real life right now.
Yeah.
Live
Yeah, no doubt.
Maurice, it is not only, it's a conversation that with Love Different, as a Caucasian, as the white girl in the movie,
Yeah.
I was stuck over elements of culture that I never even knew that I didn't know. And Anthony and I became so close. And I got to be very transparent and vulnerable and say, Anthony, I didn't even know that existed. I had no idea. And what really opened my eyes was when and remember when we were having lunch and you're like, dude, I feel like the itis is coming on. And I'm like, what if I actually have some Tylenol? I might have something in my purse. And the entire crew busted out. And I was like, I don't know. What?
Wait. Look at Jarod. Jarod's like, wait, what's the itis?
He doesn't know what it is, Anthony. He's completely lost.
Yeah. And so, and that's where to me, white community, we do not understand the difference between cultures. Even though we think we do, we don't. And we don't understand the difference between the Mexican culture, the Chinese culture, all cultures. Everyone is different. And not until you love different and walk alongside and have those conversations and live life, do you really understand. And Aunt and I had so many great conversations. I want to share something else that impacted me, Anthony, from one of our talks. Is like you went out to church afterwards to you and Donna to like a lunch at someone's home, but you guys were the only Black friends going in, and you felt out of place. As a white person, I never would even think that, because my mom raised me. You look at people for their heart, their soul, for who they are. You don't look at anything else. If they're a jerk, well, they're a jerk, and you still have to forgive them. But if they're kind, there's nothing that should be creating a barrier. And so, when Anthony, when you shared it hit me, and it still hits me. And it's like, what is our responsibility as to be able to make sure we are able to love, differently to truly connect. And I might be babbling on a little bit too much, Maurice, but it hits my heart really, really deep.
Oh no. You're fine, Jen. I love the way that you just kind of navigated in the film. I mean, you were just like so smooth and seamless in the cast, and also very humorous and real. And there was a scene in there where there was a white guy giving you a hard time because you were with you're surrounded by black guys. You had black friends in the film. Anthony addressed that in a particular scene, which was funny, but it was also very real. And I just like the way that you navigated in the film. You've been in a lot of stuff, Jen, in the Christian world, faith-based film world. You've been in a lot of stuff. Like I say, you were in Frost Nixon. You've done a lot of stuff. So to step out and be a part of this film, I thought was huge on your part. And I think more of that needs to happen. I mean, it shouldn't stop. You don't see a lot of love difference out there in the faith-based world. You just don't. You look at War Room. War Room was essentially a black film with Karen Abercrombie and T.C. Stallings and Priscilla Shirer, so forth and so on. Give the Kendrick brothers a lot of credit. But the question is this, and that was hugely successful, War Room. And Love Different in its own regard was hugely successful as we won the Audience Choice Award at Marty Jean's International Christian Film Festival in 2016 in Orlando, Florida. We dominated. But what I'm saying is, I mean, is there a chance that another film like that can happen, and maybe not for a black community, maybe representing, Mike's Latino heritage, or the Asian community? I mean, are we going to see another film blow up like that with a different presentation of color?
Yes, you will.
Okay.
Because Anthony's gonna make it. I will say though, one thing that we have to remember is that we can't just throw a black actor in a film and expect white or black audience to just come when it's not the right fit and it wasn't true. Intentional for that actor. So it has to be intentional from the writing to really get the black audience. Don't just throw in a black actor. Okay, let's get the black audience now. It has to be very intentional and understanding somewhat of the culture. I think that's really important.
I'm going
now,
to share
Lee,
Murphy's Farmer and the Bell and Roxanne T. Mims. Her character was so important and crucial that she brought the love of, almost like the angelic, the love of wisdom. And so we hired specifically because we wanted to be able to honor African American culture, to be able to say, this is what wisdom comes from. This is where the heart of God comes from. This is where love comes from. And just doing a parallel in a lot of Hollywood movies, we see Christians looking really bad. We don't see Christian characters that are oftenly honored. And so that was something that intentionally with our writing that we wanted to make sure we were able to craft over. And I do believe that also came from working with Anthony on Love Different, just the awareness of conversation, that we need to see people represented in authentic being and in love. My little guys.
Sure. Now, actress Leanne Johnson chimed in, and she makes a really good point here, and it kind of goes to a point you made, Anthony, on a previous show about, a black writer, a white writer, a Latino writer, an Asian writer, what have you. So she's saying, from a faith-based filmmaking perspective, I believe it's equally important to collaborate in pre-production with people of color when scripting plot lines and characters, because white filmmakers like me are, white. So including actors and writers who are people of color will result in a more powerful story for audiences and a more positive experience for the film team. Same goes with genders, female, male, what have you, as a female filmmaker and writer, I often ask and seek out stories from men as a script, male lead, and supporting cast. So that's kind of something that you had mentioned, Anthony, on a prior show. Do you need a black writer for a black subject matter film?
Well, first of all, I want to. So what Jarod said earlier was on point when he said that his main objective was to focus on a good story.
Right.
Not thinking about black or white, but just like, hey, a good story. So that's where it starts, right? And I'm saying that to set the tone for this next part, because what this person is saying, what Leanne is saying, is true, but only in a certain situation. Because if your objective in that film is for specifically a black story, then it's absolutely, of course you need or a Hispanic story, or whatever the case is, you need someone from that group and that culture to be inclusive in that process of developing these characters, because it's about that group. However, if it's just about a story, then not necessarily. I don't think you necessarily need to have a person of color in that process if you're just writing a story, because then when you cast it, if you're still inclusive with your casting, that story could be a black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Indian. It doesn't matter the race of that person who's playing. It's about the story, not about that particular group. And so, yes, if that's kind of my answer, my perspective on that topic.
Yeah, Mike, do you have an opinion of that? Let's say we were doing a film about a Latino family. I mean, is it important to have a Latino reference or writer to do a film in that, with that type of surrounding?
Yeah, in that respect, I think it would be absolutely necessary to. If you want it to be authentic, organic, and legit, because people will call you bluff real quick, like in that regard, trying to portray what you've seen on TV, thinking that that's what it is, and it's not. So yeah, I think it is important to do your homework in that regard and bring the right people to the table, at least in the planning phases of it, and then throughout moving forward.
All right, guys. So now I got a kind of a heavy-ended question here I want to throw out to the group. Anybody can jump in. But do you think that, and we've kind of been touching on it a little bit, but I'm going to be more specific. Do you think that secular audiences, when they go out to see a faith-based film, and they see that, do you think they're negatively affected when they see that it doesn't provide any diversity at all? I mean, because we kind of touched on that's probably why a lot of black audiences don't go to a lot of Christian films, because they're not going to see anyone that looks like them more than likely in the film. They don't even think about it. They don't think these things exist. But does that affect the black audience negatively about Christian filmmaking, or any person that's not even in the body of Christ? And they go, this doesn't look any different from, I just don't see any diversity here. It's just kind of slanted one way. Does that affect people negatively who want maybe to even think about, why should I be a Christian if things aren't any different? Does that element exist?
Marty, Jarod, what you got to say?
I'll just say, I think it's accurate. Imagine if someone logs into a Christian streaming service and they're scrolling through the options, and all it is white faces all through. It doesn't take long to say, I don't think this is for me, and then move on to something else. So if that's what's out there in the faith world, then I certainly think the scenario you presented is how the reaction you would get.
Well, that's part of the reason why BET exists, right?
Well, partly, Marty, I would say, you can always go to BET. But, well, I don't know. I mean, Anthony, did you want to chime in on that?
You lost me at when a secular person goes to see a Christian movie. Like that, there was the end of the statement right there. There's secular people don't intentionally go see a Christian movie. It just doesn't really happen. Like if it's marketed as a Christian movie, I'll say this. My favorite, I think the most the most incredible crossover movie, right? And when
Yeah.
I say crossover, I mean faith-based and secular. Like
Okay.
the secular audience came out in drones to see it. The faith-based audience came out to see it. The most successful and most beautiful, and I think the best crossover movie of all time is I Can Only Imagine. Woo! The Erwin brothers killed that movie because
Yeah.
that movie it was never marketed as a Christian movie. But the Christians knew it was a Christian movie. But the secular
Yeah.
people it wasn't marketed that way. So they would go see it. It was just I can only imagine. What's this movie about? Oh, a son and his father's relationship and his music career. And it was beautiful to be able to see both a secular and Christian audience connect on one film equally. And it was obviously well produced and all that other stuff. So I think, once a movie is marketed, once you put that label of faith-based on it and market it as faith-based, at that moment, unfortunately, you're going to lose the secular audience because they're not interested in seeing a Christian movie. It's just why?
Yeah.
But if you market your film as just a film as opposed to a faith-based film, then you at least open up that opportunity for a secular audience to come in. Now the thing is, there's nothing wrong with either one. You can market your film as faith-based, and your faith-based audience is going to receive that because once you label it faith-based, you have a more strategic way of marketing your film, which is good.
Yeah.
But if you are attempting to reach a secular audience, you can't put faith-based, you can't market it as faith-based because you're going to lose it. You're going to lose that secular audience. So that's more of a general comment as opposed to like kind of the topic of diversity on it. But just generally speaking, that I think you have to go either way. But it's hard to do crossover unless you're the Erwin brothers, I guess.
Anthony, I think we screwed up when we made Christian films a genre. Christian films is not a genre. It
Yeah.
really is. If our films is a drama, it's a drama. When you say, I mean, you could have an action comedy film, but
Yeah.
you could just say Christian film, but you lose out for people that likes action comedy
Great
film.
point. It's a great point.
Yeah, but I would say this though, Marty. I would say that's accurate if you are looking to be a little bit more inclusive with the secular audience. But however, I do think there is a home for a Christian film, a film to build the body of Christ. Christians. It's good as a Christian to be able to know that I can go to a movie and know that in this film I'm going to receive a godly message. So for that
Yeah.
audience who is looking for that, obviously there is a home for that. But you are right. I mean, if you are looking to kind of reach out to that secular audience, there you gotta let that Christian label go.
Yeah,
And
for me,
I'd love
let me
to.
let me just finish this thought. Like for me, I always think about, who did Jesus come to save? Like who for? Like the
Yeah.
lost, right? Like those are the secular folks, and that's how I think. There are people that should be making Christian films, and that's awesome. But for me, I try to go after those that are lost.
Yes. Yeah. Now, Jen, were you going to add something?
Yeah. Also, hey, Del Baron, who's on. It's good to see your little comments pop up. And again, guys, I apologize as we're driving home from the emergency room with our baby who fell. So we're kind of running and gunning on this side. Talk a little bit about faith-based. It's interesting. Through the distribution process with the Farmer and the Bell Saving Santa Land, we learned from your big sales reps at your major distribution companies, not Christian distribution companies, a
Yeah.
faith
Yeah.
title would be classified faith-based when you have a come to Jesus moment or when you have an element of prayer. And I think it was 2 or 3 moments in the movie that had to have those elements. And when those elements were in the movie, immediately it was classified as faith-based, and your buyers will not touch it if they do not sell to a faith-based
Yeah.
movie.
Wow.
So as a filmmaker, you might say, I'm trying to reach the mainstream, the secular audience, and you have a come to
Yeah.
Jesus
Yeah.
movement. Well, your buyer is not going to buy and sell it to Netflix because Netflix may not be buying Christian content that was not theatrical with a huge box office because everything is data driven. And that's another thing with
Right.
Netflix. Everything is based on your algorithmic elements with IMDb and Amazon, just the back end of the algorithms. And that's what allows
Yeah,
them to
yeah.
go deeper into your bigger place. So as a faith-based movie, just like Marty, you said, we have to make sure we're telling excellent stories with genre that's based in the genre to our target demographic. And I think for all filmmakers, whatever your target demo is, you create your story to entertain. If we have a
Yes.
mission and a message, you want that in the underbelly. You do not want that to be
There you go.
because not nobody. Many people enjoy those types of stories, but you have to go back to your calling. Where's God calling you? Are you called to
There you
preach
go. Very good point.
or are you called to preach to mainstream? If you're called to preach
Yes.
to mainstream, you take biblical truths, you integrate it into the belly of the storyline without come to Jesus altar call messages. Otherwise, your buyer in distribution will not sell it to actually get out to your target demo, which is your mainstream audience.
Which is their mindset because they want to keep us out of the theaters anyway. So they don't want us to, the devil doesn't want us to succeed. So that's a way for faith-based film not to get its point out. They're praying. Oh, they said Jesus. Okay, put it over there. Nobody will go see it and just leave those people over there. That's kind of like the mindset. I mean, as a Christian comic, I don't want people to know me as a Christian comedian. I just want to be a comedian. So I can get into these places where they're doing Def Comedy Jam and they're getting really raw in there. But if I just show up, and just do my routine, at least I have a chance to say what I want to say. But then like you said, Anthony, the other side of it is, okay, but maybe there's a place for that. Oh, that's a Christian film. That's exactly what I want. So, you have two lanes that you can write, and you alluded to this too, Jen. I mean, it's like, what's your mindset? What is God prompting you to do here? And then you go with that, wherever the Holy Spirit is leading you. But it's a shame that a lot of these films aren't getting a fair shake. But I do think that the faith-based world is getting a lot better now. Mike, I know you said that you had to leave at 2, man, and it's all good. I don't want to keep you. But I want to thank you, Mike, for being a part of the show, ladies and gentlemen. Actor Michael Rodriguez on the Maurice Brown Show, been hanging out with us. And real quick, Mike, let folks know how they can see you in some of your projects.
Yeah, sure. I'm on IMDb, so you can find me there as Michael J. Rodriguez. I've got an Instagram page called Mike R, the number 4, JC, Jesus Christ. So Mike R for JC. And I got an actor Facebook page, Michael J. Rodriguez as well. So feel free to hit me up, ask to be friends, what have you. Be glad to connect with you guys. Thank you for the opportunity. This is a great conversation that we definitely need to unfold a lot with this, and I'd love to be a part of any future opportunity. So,
hey, hold on 1 second. 1 second, Michael. Do you have time for one question?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Maurice. May I please ask one question?
Absolutely.
All right, so I was curious this, and I appreciate you being here, Michael. So, Black people, we yipping and yapping, talking about lack of diversity, whoop-de-woo, and all this, and not seeing enough of people represented. But, as much as we talk, man, the Hispanic community is even more underrepresented than we are.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true.
Films. And so I'm curious, just from your perspective, as an actor and someone who's in this entertainment world, what is your thought on that, and what is your thought specifically on the underrepresentation of the Hispanic community in these films, and how would you like to see it change in your opinion?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's actually a really good question. And just for starters, I would say you need to give more opportunities because you're leaving some food on the table, because there's a lot of talent out there in Hispanic.
Yeah, there is.
Working with them and at classes and things of that nature, side by side, and other projects that I've seen people on and then don't see them on for a while. Don't leave food on the table. Give these people an opportunity to get out there, get after it, compete for a role, and see how they shine. Another aspect is just to address the, helping people, mentorship, putting things out there so that they can grow and learn. I think a lot of people are unaware of, how to get their names out there, how to update an IMDb page, put pictures, photos, videos, building a resume, getting a strong reel on, the importance of getting on good projects, all those types of things that people aren't realizing. And those who are making that happen, they're creating opportunities for themselves. And then the other side of that, as well as the business side, I think we need more Hispanics and folks of color to step up and start running some production companies to start creating those opportunities for the right folks. And I would take the approach that Jared's taking with telling a good story, because a good story is going to encompass diversity, period. And if you go from that approach, you're going to get the right people for the right role. You get top talent coming in, doing their thing, making a difference in this life and its world.
It's a great answer, Mike. And I appreciate your humility, Mike. You know what I mean? It's kind of interesting what Anthony said. Black folks always yapping about something, man. Hey, man, I want my shot. But no, but Mike, you're very humble, man. I'm telling you, because that's a great question. I think the Latino community is hugely underrepresented represented in film. I mean, there's no question about that. And as you said, a lot of terrific talent is being overlooked. So great question, Anthony. Great question.
And I would also say, and even more, if not even more, at least just as much. But I think even more. I think the Hispanic community is also typecasted even more than we are. When you think of, I need to cast a Hispanic role, and you just think of the most Hispanic thing that could possibly be to cast this role. Oh, they need this and that. When in reality, they're just like, all of us are just like everything. We can play any role. We can play a cop. We can play a thug. We can play a doctor. We can play all these roles. And so to be able to have our minds as directors and writers and producers open our eyes to see this particular role can be played by any culture, any race. As long as we can open our eyes to that and see that we're all capable of playing the same roles, then we can be a little bit more inclusive in filling those roles. So anyway, thanks, Mike, man. I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
No, likewise. Thanks. God bless you guys.
Yes, sir.
God bless you, Mike. Thank you, buddy. Michael Rodriguez on the Maurice Brown Show. Excellent guy. Excellent guy. Now, I did want to throw a couple of more questions out there for you guys. And we've been talking about race. We'll get off race for a minute. Who can describe or define what is, and Marty, you were kind of talking about it a little bit. How would you define a faith-based film? What makes a faith-based film a faith-based film?
I think Jenn said it perfectly. Once you have that come to Jesus moment, right? Let's look at it this way. If I have a movie and I talk about, okay, you shouldn't kill, that's technically from the Bible, but it doesn't make it a faith-based film.
Yeah.
But once you have those come to Jesus moments, you have the altar call, people coming and saving their lives. I think that's what makes it an official faith-based film. I do agree with Jenn 100% on that.
Yeah, I would say that it would. I mean, in doing Love Different, Jenn, I've told this story many times. The first film that I've ever had an opportunity to be a part of, it's a Christian cast, so forth, and in the pinnacle scene of Love Different, there was crying involved, and I saw you and Anthony pray for that before we did the scene. You know what I'm saying? And like you prayed. Both of you prayed to tears. That was one of the most awe-inspiring moments I think I've ever witnessed. Because here I am, because that was
having Jenn on set is like having a legit heavenly being on set. Jenn is she will bring she doesn't care who is around. She will stop the entire production and say, hey guys, we need to pray now. Sometimes she don't even say that. She'll just literally stop. In the name of Jesus, I just wanted. I'm like, dang, Jenn, hold on. I got food in my mouth. Dang, hold on. She doesn't care. She loves God and she is unashamed, and that is the beauty of having her on any set in the world. So with that being said, and I'm saying that in relation to what you just said, Maurice, we prayed, and there may have been passion and emotion in that prayer, but Jenn brings that. She brings that to the set. Every set that I've been on with her, at least. So, I appreciate that, and that's what you need in a faith-based. If you want about faith, what's a faith-based project? It starts with prayer. It starts with saying, "Jim, get out the shot, Jim. Get out the shot, Jim." It starts with prayer. That's where it starts. And any faith-based project that does not have prayer involved, I would just challenge you to make sure that's included, because that's the most important piece to any faith-based project.
And it doesn't have to be faith-based, Anthony. Any project, period.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. In any project, but that there are things that happen in your life, that benchmark events occur in your life that you'll never forget. You don't have a ton of them, but that was one for me that I'll never forget when I watched that, because we're about to do a heavy scene. Like, that was a pinnacle scene of the film, and I'm the bad guy, and we're getting ready to go in, and I'm just watching this, and it was beautiful. I never see anything like that. But I think a faith-based film, it's really hard to define, because I think personally your mindset should be, how do I get lost souls saved in what I do, whether it be comedy or acting or music, that God gave you that gift. Now go get my people. You know what I mean? And so I think a faith-based film, kind of going back to what you said, Marty, I like what you said about not labeling it, just do it, just put the product out there, and then let the world decide what it is. And because you can get a secular person to walk in on a faith-based film, and they don't even know that it's faith-based. Oh, I love the title. Oh, it's about what? Whoa, I had an experience like that years ago. I'm going to check it out. And they'll go in there. Before they realize it, they go, well, this is a Jesus thing.
I will say that's how Don't Say My Name is.
But look, Marty, but that's a good thing. You're like, oh man, it's a Jesus thing. But you know what? I kind of like it, because now you're invested into the program. It's like the person now, they don't like the fact, doggone it, they're talking that Jesus stuff, but I really I really like the film, and they'll stay and they'll watch it, and that's how it has to be. Like Vindication, Jarod O'Flaherty's Vindication is that way. You don't know that it's a Christian deal. You think it's like Blue Bloods or NYPD Blue or whatever that stuff is, Law and Order. That's what you think it is, and then all of a sudden you go, whoa, this is pretty compelling stuff. And you don't even care that they took the Bible out in one of the scenes, because it's so intense. And now you want to watch the whole, season. That's how you bring lost people in. Were you going to say something, Jarod?
Yeah, I was going to say, we had a viewer feedback on Amazon once, and it gave us 1 star and was like, I think Amazon should label these as faith-based, because people like me that are atheists, we get in watching and we didn't know ahead of time. And the episode they were talking about, I went back and watched, and there was nothing in it for like the first 20 minutes that would even give a hint to it being faith-based. So I'm like, that person watched 20 minutes of the show, they were into it, and then found out it was faith-based, and suddenly they don't like it, and it's 1 star. So yeah, it's what you're talking about, of people stumbling in and getting hooked in the story, and then, oh wait, hold on, this is about Jesus. I don't want that. Never mind.
Well, it's just like fishing. I mean, you always have fish that get away, but there are some that you catch. Sometimes you catch the pretty big ones, and then you got to take that chance. And in that 20 minutes that person watched the show made a difference, even though they got mad. A lot of atheists try to pretend that they're mad when they hear God or when they hear Jesus. I wonder what happens to them if they find out that they've only got 2 weeks to live. I don't know what they'd say if the doctor told them that. Anyway, John Hall says, what do you think about a program like Netflix but just on religious themes? religio flicks dealing with all faiths, Muslim, Christian, Buddhism, etc.
I haven't seen it. I don't know enough about it.
When they say a program, are they referring to like a show that?
Well, I think what John Hall is saying is that what do you think about, okay, if we call it like PureFlix is a faith-based channel, right? That's a really good question right there, because it kind of goes back a little bit also. What's that, Marty?
But for Christians, right? Faith-based could also mean Muslim, right?
It could. It could mean Muslim and Hindu and Buddhism and all that type stuff, and you don't see that
Yeah.
on PureFlix, right? So I guess that's kind of what what he's suggesting. Maybe there should be a channel that's open to all those other faiths, but of course that's not.
I wonder if inspirational TV and positive TV, which is a subdivision of TBN, we're seeing Encourage TV, which is David Austin's streaming device with Bridgestone Media. I think there are so many, like Dove Foundation, our Dove, which Cineton runs. They're looking
Yes.
for positive content, not necessarily Christian, Jesus themed content. So if all different types of belief systems come through and there's an element of redemption and hope, I do think those streamers are not, I think they're accepting them. I don't think there's some sort of qualification that you need to be Christian. So we've got a device. It's just figuring out where to get it. Now, Netflix, they buy differently. And they've been, just from the meetings that we've had, it's they're in a different market right now.
Yeah, and I actually think that's it. I'm glad to see that your baby's healthy and he's doing great, Jen.
Honey, I have him right now with me.
All the glory to Christ.
Yeah,
I'm glad he's doing well.
back, and he wasn't able to crawl. So we needed to take a look to see if he had broken any. He's fully excellent. We had a lot of people.
Amen. Amen. All the glory to Christ. Glad to know that. Glad to know that. Michael J. Patterson, our good buddy Mike, who is also in Love Different, he says, I always ask when someone wants to send me a faith-based script, I'm like, which faith? You know what? I tell you, man, this guy, John Hall, that was a really good question, because this thing could get really, hey, Marty, the word faith-based can get really confusing. You know what I mean? It's like, is this a Christian film or what? Why do we call Christian stuff faith-based? And I think it's because they want to leave it open so that other faiths can be included in that. But we as Christians, that's not what we want. But as I say that, Marty, going back to your point, that's probably why, or lends itself to explaining why, we shouldn't be labeling our stuff. Just do it. But, here,
I mean, faith-based is like saying religious. It's the same. Which religion are you talking about?
I don't even know where that term came from. Faith-based. I don't know where it came from.
When we went to Hallmark to have conversations, and our movie, The Farmer and the Belle, has inspirational messages. Hallmark called it religious. So what I started to hear in the marketplace are people who are not Christian, when they see a movie that has any sort of inspirational messaging that could be connected to a scripture or any sort of thing that has redemptive quality that they can identify element of a church, it's called religious, not faith-based. And I was like, wow, that's interesting to know. And then this is something else to think about on this particular conversation. Our Jewish friends, there are so many Jewish friends who literally led Hollywood with storytelling, but you don't ever hear them called Jewish movies. They're just called based on their genre and their market.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Like Marty,
That's a great point.
I think. Let me just say one thing. I think people worry too much about faith-based, non-faith-based, secular. I think we should worry about what did God call you to do, and then
Yeah.
let God do the rest. Right? Like do what God calls you to do, and then you don't worry about saving lives because it's not your job. Let the Holy Spirit do that. And I think if we focus on what God has called us to do and just do that, I think would be good in a lot of ways.
So Dave Ebert says he thinks part of what is needed is to divide faith-based into three categories: evangelical, edifying, entertainment. So is the project meant to give a piece of the gospel to unbelievers? Is the project meant for uplifting, encouraging, admonishing the body? And then category three, entertainment, or is it truly just God-honoring entertainment? So, I mean, good point, Dave. I mean, there's so many different ways that you could go about, defining this thing. But at the end of the day, I mean, everybody's got their own spin. We got to figure out how we're going to get lost souls saved in the business of entertainment. Whether it's movie making or what have you. Now, guys, I got one more. This is a small question, but I don't even know if it's worth getting into since we're talking about faith-based. But is there a difference between faith-based and faith-conscious? You think there's a difference, Jarod, between the two?
That's interesting.
I've kind of stayed on the sidelines for this discussion because I'm not real big on slapping the labels on things of, oh, it's this or that, because it puts it into a container and I think ruins creativity, if you got to do that. So, faith conscious, faith based, there is a large, I'm going to say large, there's an audience out there who wants content that has that label on it. And they'll show up for you. At least the stuff I've done, they'll show up for you if you give them that, because there's a demand for it and there's a very small supply. There's not, we talked about diversity in faith-based entertainment. When you look at the amount of faith-based films that are coming out compared to things Hollywood is putting up, it's such a small number. So people will give stuff a chance, even if it's not very good, because they want something like that. So I certainly understand that there is an audience that'll show up and will watch that type of entertainment, whether it's faith conscious, faith based. That's, I think, just a minor detail of how you want to classify it.
I think you're absolutely right, Jarod. And I think if the story is good, the production value is there, people will watch it. I believe they will.
They will. And look, this has been a great discussion, guys. I appreciate you allowing me to entertain the topic. We've kicked it around several different times and looked at it this way and that way and flipped it over. And great discussion, no question about that. Before we get out of here, though, Marty, I'll start with you. Is there any advice that you can leave young actors or producers, writers, directors out there that are thinking about maybe making this a career choice for their life? Any advice for them?
Don't do it. I'm kidding.
Yes.
One, it's true.
I can't remember who said this, but and I'll never forget it. Be so good that they can't ignore you. Right? So work on your craft.
Yes.
Work on your craft, and people will not ignore you. They will see you. And the thing is, you will get discouraged for sure. Without a doubt. Don't give up. Persevering.
I know of one great comedian who turned into an actor that made that very statement, and it was Steve Martin. Steve Martin said, it was Steve. Yeah, Steve Martin. He said, "Be so good they just can't ignore you." Steve Martin was on the streets, doing comedy with, puppets. He was juggling balls and all those stuff. Bombed over, and he said, "You know what? I'm actually not funny." He said, "I've never been funny." He said, "But I worked so hard at it that they couldn't deny me." He said, "I literally worked myself up to being this good at it." He said, "I'm not funny." He said, "I just wanted it." So, yeah, I mean, be so good they can't ignore you. Yeah.
Yeah, let me say one thing, too. A lot of people miss their opportunity because they give up right before their breakthrough.
Okay. Yes.
So it's
Yes, that's
important
true.
not to give up.
Marty, there are so many people out there sitting on their couch eating Doritos, watching the Monday Night Football game, getting ready for the Monday Night Football game tonight because they didn't have the perseverance to keep doing it. And they're actually, got to go back to what I said about Steve Martin, they're actually either funnier or more talented or whatever it is, more skilled than the one that made it because they didn't quit.
Exactly.
Jarod O'Flaherty, what do you have for him?
Sorry, I had to mute. I had a lawn crew show up outside my window here, so I didn't want to disrupt.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to give a very practical one. I like Marty's about be the best. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But you mentioned specifically getting into this industry as a career. A handful of people that I know that are successful that are doing the filmmaking.
Yes.
It wasn't their only pole in the water, so to speak. Right.
Yes. Yes.
And that takes a lot of stress off of it. My background is a programmer, IT, all that kind of tech stuff, and I did that for a long time.
Okay.
And it has taken a lot of stress away from me of having to make it in the film industry as a director or whatever. I just get to go all in, do what I want, be creative and all that. If it doesn't work out, okay, I got something else I can do. Whereas those who have put everything in and don't have that fallback option, it adds a lot of stress and can take a lot of the joy out of what they're doing, and can hamper what they're trying to do instead of enrich it. So that's just a very practical one on my side, and that's what I've seen. There's lots of people that work on our show that acting is not their number one. It's something they love, it's their passion, it's their hobby, but they also have a career that keeps them afloat.
Well, that's great advice, Jarod, because it's a tough business. I mean, entertainment is a tough business. There are a lot of no's. There's a lot of rejection, and you have to be able to, sustain yourself. You got to pay the bills as well, so you got to measure and weigh all of those things out. Not everybody, turns out to be, Denzel and Brad Pitt and all that stuff, Tom Cruise. I mean, that's great, but, you got to have a fallback plan. Anthony Hackett, what do you have for him?
First of all, hey, baby James. Is that baby James out here? What up, baby James? I also want to say, Jarod, real quick, I got to let Jarod know. So, Jarod,
Okay.
itis, all right? The itis, all right? Just so, I have to let you know before we go. The itis is, all right, it's when black people eat, and after they eat, they get real tired.
Yes.
And they get the itis because it's time to go to sleep. So that's what the itis is. So anytime you're around brothers and sisters, and they say, I got the itis, that means they tired because they just ate. You got to
Jarod, I see you're writing that down. Very good, Jarod.
Jarod, I have a question for you. So Jarod, do you have Thanksgiving turkey on Thanksgiving? Do you have turkey?
Oh yeah.
What do you call it when you get sleepy after eating turkey? What is from the turkey that calls you to be sleepy?
Stuffed. We're stuffed. We're tired. I don't know.
All right, so we call it. I think there's some sort of chemical in the turkey called tryptophan. Am I saying correct?
That's it, tryptophan. Yes, what? That's what it is.
And so when I told Anthony, I said, "Is it like tryptophan?" Anthony's like, "What? I've never heard that." And so us white people, after we eat turkey, we get sleepy from the tryptophan.
So you just
that's a good analogy, Jen. That's a good analogy.
In my mind, I still didn't know what you was talking about, and apparently I had this conversation with you before. So we got some catching up to do, Jen. But so now you know, Jarod. All right,
yes, thank you.
Write that down.
Thank you.
I just want to, if I could just close, I just want to address briefly the kind of the topic at hand of what we started the whole thing with, which is the lack of diversity in faith-based films. I just want to round that out and just encourage, the minorities who may be watching or who may watch later on, to first of all, we can all just acknowledge that, yes, there is a lack of diversity in faith-based films. That's accurate. With that being said, my encouragement is for people who are minorities to not think strongly on that and instead think about what you can do. Right. So for me personally, I understood that there's a lack of diversity in faith-based films before my whole situation. And what God called me to do was start my own production company and make movies. If there's not enough roles for me, then dang it, I'm gonna make some freaking roles for me, and I'm gonna make some roles for other minorities. I'm gonna make roles, and I'm gonna keep my cast diverse, and I'm gonna do what I can do. Now, not everybody is in a position or has the necessarily the skills to be able to say, "Oh, I can't freaking do my own production company." That's fine. It may not be your call to start your own production company or something like that. But what you can do is find out what God has equipped you with and really go full force and make your own lane. Carve your own lane because when you carve your own lane, other people are going to notice you. When you
Yeah.
start that
Yeah.
YouTube channel, when you get on TikTok, when you make a short film, when you do whatever it is, and your skills increase, the quality of what you do increases, people are going to notice you.
Yeah.
I'm sitting up here talking with you guys on this show today because I just did it. And I didn't care who was in my way. I didn't care if there was an opportunity. I just prayed and prayed and grinded my butt off and prayed and just made a lane that did not exist. And that's what I want to encourage people to do. Find your lane and create it. And that's to the minorities, to the white people. Let me say something to you. All right. I want to encourage all of those who are in a position that may be greater than those of your minority counterparts to please keep in mind that the minority has to be represented in all projects if we want to better represent the kingdom of God. And I feel like God's
Wow.
kingdom
Great
is so
point.
diverse. God's kingdom is all about togetherness. So if you who are in a positions of maybe have more funding, more resources, more accessibility, whatever the case is, just keep in mind that diverse cast, although the technical faith-based audience is majority white female, if that's the statistics on it, that's
Yeah.
okay. That doesn't mean there's not a home for minorities. So I just want to encourage the white counterpart, please keep minorities intentional in what you're doing. Instead of just looking at it like it's not intentional that we may not be regarding them. Well, understood, but be intentional to include them, include us.
Yes. Great point. Great point. Jenn, I'm going to flip it over to you. You just came in. The question, Jenn, is what advice can you leave with young aspiring actors and writers and producers out there that are thinking about making this industry a career choice?
Absolutely. I think it first needs to start with prayer. God has given each one of us a unique skill set. We need to pray and say, God, is this skill set to be used in storytelling and acting, in directing and producing? What is the direction of the skill set? Once you have clarity on it, then I think the next thing is to be able to position yourself with education of excellence. Iron sharpens iron. I've grown through the journey as an actor, and so I studied for like 9+ years for multiple conservatories. But that was because there was pain that entered into me when I was younger. My drama teacher told me that I wasn't talented enough to be an actor, but I knew that call in my heart was so strong. So I said, I need to learn how to do it. And sometimes I get it right, and a lot of times I don't, and I'm still learning as an actor. So for aspiring artists, what is God calling you to do? Educate yourself, become excellent at it. Third thing, be of service. What can you do to serve someone else in the arts in that same field? If we come with a heart of service, we're able to be a blessing to someone, to pour into someone, into their dream. And as a result, I believe God sees that and raises us up. And that's one of the things that happened in my journey. I started at short film festivals, 1 6-8 hour film project, and all I did was I wanted to serve other filmmakers, and then God allowed me to learn and grow in that journey. So I would say pray, what is your calling? Second, educate, and then third, serve. And those would be the 3 elements of advice.
Awesome advice, Jenn. I love it. Awesome advice by everyone, and it's something that young people Neat to hear, no doubt about that. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with Marty Jean Louis and Anthony Hackett, Jarod O'Flaherty, directors in their own right, and actress Jenn Gotzon. We also had Michael J. Rodriguez, actor on the Maurice Brown Show, the lack of diversity in faith-based films. Now, before we get out of here, I want to go give all you guys a chance to tell everybody on what's coming up, upcoming projects on the horizon, starting with you, Marty.
No. Oops. So right now, I have Don't Say My Name, who has been released. So we're doing different cities,
Okay.
which is really, really cool. We have the New Jersey area next, and then Atlanta, Boston, and so on. And I'm also
Awesome.
working on a documentary on abuse.
Okay.
God keeps bringing me abuse projects
Okay.
that will be released at ICFF next year. And also working on another heavy topic documentary on LGBTQ+.
Okay. Good stuff, Marty, and it's something that needs to be addressed by the church. I love it. Anthony Hackett, what do you got coming up?
Hope lives. Hope lives. Say that with me, everybody. Hope lives.
Hope lives.
Yeah, the film. Find us on Facebook. Hope Lives on Facebook. It's actually Hope Lives the movie. You can go to hopelivesthemovie.com. It's a film we filmed this past summer. It'll be out next year. It is about a group of high school students who are all victims of bullying, and they join an after-school program where they meet with a counselor who experienced his own experience with bullying, tragic experience. And together you follow their journey on this dramatic, comedy-filled, inspirational journey where all of their stories kind of intertwine. So it's very powerful, good message. And I encourage you guys to stay tuned for Hope Lives, as well as ICFF 10-year anniversary coming up.
I can't wait for that. I love it. Hey, Marty, is that going to be in Orlando?
Get off mute, Marty. Will you stop it? Stop talking and we can't hear you.
I got black equipment too.
Right.
Yes, it will be in Orlando.
Man,
Yeah.
Hey, it's so fun. You guys, white people, it's okay. You can laugh.
I love
know
it.
there's
I love that
problem-
event down there, dude. It is absolutely
there's no
awesome.
problem with the black dude. Like, oh, shoot, should I laugh? That was kind of funny, but I shouldn't. Don't show teeth. Just don't show teeth. Smirk. Jenn's cool. She's laughing like a mug. Jared's showing a little teeth. I see it. But that's it. Hope Lives. Check us out. And also, you can go to sunsetfriday.com, SONSET, sunsetfriday.com, and you can see our other projects. And it's great meeting you, Jarod. Jenn, I love seeing you always. Marty, a pleasure with you. And Maurice, you the man. And I encourage you to continue doing what you're doing, man. It's incredible. And God's going to continue
Thank
to
you,
expand your hosting territory. So thank you.
Hey, man, all the glory to Christ. I appreciate it, Anthony. Absolutely. Jarod O'Flaherty, what do you got coming up other than Vindication, man? Tell us about Vindication, man. Talk about it, Jarod.
Oh man, I don't want to talk about that. First of all, I want to ask, did we record at Jenn's screen? Because I saw like an entire plot line happen there, right? You know, there was suspense. Is she going to make it home? You know, the husband shows up. What's that going to do? And, you know, there were some times that
Got it all on tape,
Did
Jarod.
we lose her forever? Is she gone? Oh, she's back. I mean, there was suspense. There was comedy. There was everything happening in that screen. So I hope we got that.
We got it. We got it.
Good deal. Good deal. I wanted to share one thing that kind of wraps up what Jenn was saying earlier. Some of what Anthony was saying. It was an experience that we had on Vindication recently. There was a role that when I wrote it and when I pictured it, it was going to be this teenage white kid that was entitled. You know, he wears the polo shirts and the swooped over hair, and that's how I envisioned it. We put out a casting call, and when I put out the casting, you know, you got to say, is it Caucasian? Is it Black, Hispanic, Asian, whatever? And I thought, well, it doesn't have to be one of those. So I just put, let's have all. And in our area, Dallas, Fort Worth, when the headshots and tapes and stuff start coming in, you know, it's 80% white. But then there were a couple black teenagers that had submitted things there. And anyway, so I started reviewing the tapes, and there was one man, I just couldn't look away from it. But in my mind, I'd always pictured this role. Oh, it's going to be this white kid, and kind of what his background would be. But there was this other one that was just like, whoa. So I asked some other people that helped me with casting, and they're like, I'm with you, Jarod. That kid just nailed it. I mean, it was the role. So you talk about making your lane. That guy did so good. He changed who that character needed to be, that it went from, in my mind, a Caucasian character to a black character. And we got on set and people were pulling me aside. Jarod, where did you find that guy? He is phenomenal. He is incredible and all that. So It just goes to show those who have said, be the master of your craft, to excel and all that, make your own lane. That's a firsthand example of it, and do I regret it? No, it was awesome. It was great. So it really does happen. And that was a firsthand experience that we had.
He was so good, Jarod, you could not deny him.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what
right.
It comes down to. Be so good they can't deny
He
it.
rewrote the role with his audition that it was so good. So
There it is. That is, in a nutshell, all it takes to be excellent in your craft. Be so good they can't say no. Jenn Gotzon, what do you have coming up on the horizon?
Can I piggyback real quick off of what Jarod just said?
Absolutely.
So, and then I'll share a little. So, it's interesting with casting for actors out there. You're on Actors Access, and just like you said, you have to write in what ethnicity is the character. Obviously, I'm white and blonde, and every time I get an audition that has looking at all ethnicities, immediately I go, well, most likely I won't get cast. And then when you see the final casting, it will always go to a wonderful friend of color, which is awesome. But
Yes.
I always get eliminated. And so then when I look at bigger movies, I'm the white person, if they're cast as the lead, the only other role that I ever have the opportunity to play is if it's a sister or a relative. Other than that, I don't have any other job opportunities because of the element of diversity, which I think is fantastic and awesome and is what needs to be. And this is what our conversation is. But it's just a different perspective that, we might not all know. Okay, so coming on up, I'm so excited for Marty with Don't Say My Name in theaters. We have a movie that Anthony helped with and called The Farmer and the Belle Saving Santa. And
Okay.
it came out last year during COVID and we became a bestseller. But we looked at it and we only had about 100,000 people who saw it from the data that came in. And so God gave me this idea, why don't we put stuff in theaters? As we learned that these theaters, they've only seen a 30% return and they're struggling to stay open. And then Christian stores, people aren't going in there to buy because people are going to Amazon. So God blew this vision. Why don't we have a nostalgic experience, a Christmas release where these small town theaters take Saving Santa Land and bring your Christian bookstore there. And this vision had me start calling literally the bookers and the buyers of all of your major theaters at small towns to big chains. And I've been pitching a movie and we are releasing in theaters November 19th and across the country.
All right. Awesome.
Theatrical release, like a real theatrical release from this little person making a phone call, shaking in my boots saying, hi, I've got a Christmas movie that might be nice for your families. And so done. I want to encourage you filmmakers out there, pick up the phone, call. So many people are hungry for content. So we have that coming up. And then guys, if you're in New York City, we're going to have our premiere, our world premiere in New York City on November 9th. So if that interests you and you want to come on out and promote your movie, we're going to have a lot of press there. And our horse with the pink onesie is going to show up as well from the movie. Message me, Jenn Gotzon, and I can get you the RSVP details. And you can reach me on Facebook, Jenn Gotzon, and that's probably the best way to get me. For those who don't have a theater and you want to watch a fun Christmas movie that Anthony's in and he does a phenomenal job, you have to watch for it because it's so cool. It's on Amazon Prime, The Farmer and the Belle Saving Santa Land. You can watch it now.
Amen. Awesome, Jenn. Thank you so much. And thank you to all you guys that have been on the show here today. Marty, Jean Louis, Anthony Hackett, and Jarod O'Flaherty. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've been watching this and you thought it was like really cool, like I like this show, subscribe to the Maurice Brown Comedy Channel and like it and share it, as well as any social media engine that Marty Jean Louis and Anthony Hackett and Jarod O'Flaherty and Jenn Gotzon are a part of. And also, if you came in at the very end like my main man, Michael J. Patterson, and you're like, I missed it. It's okay. About midday tomorrow, go to the Creative Motion Network on Roku TV. Sit down, watch a whole darn thing.
Yay!
Watch a whole darn thing.
Maurice, you're amazing, dude. You are so awesome. You are such amazing.
Well, Jen, thank you. All the glory to Christ. I give all the glory to Christ.
You're fearless. Love you, buddy.
Well, Jen, you are awesome. I'll tell you that right now. And it was a privilege and honor acting with you at Love Different and Anthony Hackett and Michael Patterson and the late Tommy Ford. That was a great experience. So I can tell you that right now. And this has been a great conversation. And one more reminder to everyone out there, go see Don't Say My Name. It was released, I believe, Friday, right, Marty?
Yes.
So check it out. It's going to be, and you said that you guys are going to be going to different parts of the country.
Yes.
And so just be on the lookout for Marty and the posse. They're going to show.
Don'tSayMyName.com.
There it is. Don'tSayMyName.com. As you got to check it out. I think our good buddy Cameron I think Cameron's a part of that film, correct?
Yeah, he's one of the leads. Yes.
So check that out, everybody. And once again, you've been watching The Maurice Brown Show, the lack of diversity in faith-based films. Thank you so much, guys, for being on the show. May the peace of Jesus Christ be with you and your families, everybody. God bless.
Bye-bye.